Hello and welcome to Views on News. I am Jawad Tehami. Since the Kabul takeover by the Taliban back in 2021, Pakistan has witnessed a resurgence of terrorism, and Pakistan's authorities have been asking the de facto authorities in Afghanistan, the Afghan Taliban, to fulfill their international obligation as per the international instrument, that is Doha Accord. But on the part of the de facto authorities in Afghanistan, there has been a pattern of denial. We've also seen multiple efforts had been undertaken on the regional front in order to impress upon the de facto authorities in Afghanistan so that they take a concrete and a decisive action against the terrorist groups and the militant outfits based in Afghanistan, using the Afghan soil against the neighboring countries and posing a regional threat. We have also seen Pakistan Institute for Conflict and Security Studies stats tell that November 2024 has been one of the devastating months of the anti-state violence, with 245 fatalities and 257 injuries. 71 attacks have been recorded in the month of November, and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa remains to be the most affected region because of these heinous terrorist acts. Also, in the last 11 months of 2024, there were 856 terror attacks as compared to 645 in 2023. Also, Pakistan's law enforcement agencies and security forces personnel continue to be vigilant in order to secure the motherland from this particular menace. On one side, they are engaged in thwarting the infiltration attempts from across the border from Afghanistan, and on the other, they are busy in eliminating these anti-state elements through various operations, including the intelligence-based operations. All these aspects are for discussion in today's show. For that, we are honored to have been joined in the studio by Dr. Shafqat Munir, security analyst. Dr. Munir, thank you very much for your time, for being with us on the show tonight. We really appreciate that. Also in the studio, we are honored to have been joined by Mr. Air Marshal, retired Saeed Mohammed Khan, senior analyst. Mr. Khan, thank you very much for your time, also for being with us on the show tonight. We really appreciate that. Dr. Munir, what this particular assessment on the part of Pakistan Institute for Conflict and Security Studies depict, what is it indicative of? Do we understand that there is an escalating security challenge with every single passing day here in Pakistan?
Certainly, if you look at the November figures and if you compare it with the whole of the year, we see the rise in this 1 month, because this month is particularly, the weather condition also are suitable for them in terms of entering or attacking different places, positions. And secondly, these sort of escalations are some structured kind of mechanism behind it. And Pakistan has been having these intelligence-based operations. But on the other side, which I think should have been taken care of, is the more engagement with the de facto administration in Kabul through various regional and international players. That should have been intensified with the intensification of the on-ground operation. Thirdly, there should have been political governance improved in the provinces where these kind of insurgency activities are taking place. So if there is any political acunas or political stability or political governance, then certainly it leads towards humanitarian governance problems. Because in terms of humanitarian crisis, as the report itself speaks loudly about the number of attacks and also the casualties there. So in that context, we have to look at as a whole, in a holistic approach, that we have to look at three fronts. One is the national front, wherein we need to improve the humanitarian and political governance. Secondly, we have to engage more with the de facto administration. Thirdly, we have to involve our friends in the region and at global level. So in mix of these kind of action with the operations which are already being conducted successfully, they could be supplemented and get help out of it.
Marshal Khan, what's your understanding? We've witnessed a resurgence of terrorism as well as this particular these 11 months of 2024, 856 terror attacks as compared to 645 back in 2023. So clearly it's an increase in the number of terror attacks in this particular year?
You're very right in highlighting this thing. Actually, this is the third round of escalations in the Kuram area. The first time it happened in 2007, then 2023, and then now in 2024. The players almost seem to be the same: Tehreek-e-Taliban, Islamic States, and Zenabun. Most of the times when we listen to the civil administration over there, they call it a land dispute between Shias and Sunnis. However, it has clearly gone down to the level of
Marshal, if I see your pardon for holding you over here for a second. Other than that, the worst violence that has taken place between the tribal rivals, other than that, when we talk about the resurgence of terrorism, as far as those attacks which have been targeted towards the security personnel, law enforcement agencies.
I was actually coming to the same point. Okay. So they generally tell us that that the main players over there are the ones who are coming from our western neighbor. All the three times it has been the local jirga which has been able to resolve the issue. So in my opinion, just like Dr. Saab said, you know, we need to have a strong political government action over there, a provincial government action over there, and the local administration must bring in the jirga, like they are already, I think today they have said that the jirga is going to be you know, formed up in a day or two. And then there should be a long-term solution to this problem, because it seems that every year, you know, the people are, whenever the weather suits them, they come from our neighboring country, they create havoc over here, and then they go back. And this is not correct. Only the local people can stop this, you know, cycle of violence. And for the local people to be engaged, the jirga has to be activated. So I personally think that the civilian administration under the banner of the provincial government must take the lead. The defense forces, you know, our army, our paramilitary forces must back them up, and we must stop this infiltration through the help of the local people, take them out before they reach you know, their area of interest, and we should be able to, you know, control it for all future purposes.
The number of strides are already being undertaken by the security forces over there, deployed over there, the law enforcement agencies over there. A number of intelligence-based operations are also being carried out by them. They remain to be vigilant in order to secure the motherland. And what needs to be done in order to stop and thwart that infiltration from across the border when it comes to Afghanistan specifically? I'll come back to you for your detailed analysis regarding that also. For now, we are joined by another participant, Mr. Zahir Shah Sherazi, a security analyst. Mr. Sherazi, thank you very much for your time, for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. Mr. Sherazi, what do you understand of these particular stats by Pakistan Institute for Conflict and Security Studies? A clear increase in the number of terrorist attacks and also the subsequent fatalities.
Well, thank you, Jawad. Yes, they are alarming, and obviously the reasons we have, again, as our earlier participant was mentioning, that the western border issue, and obviously the Afghan soil, which we were expecting after the arrival of Taliban in Kabul, that perhaps this western border would remain secure, but overall we have seen the infiltration has increased, and then the nexus which these militant groups have formed, and obviously the proxies, which now the American think tanks and a number of other researchers, they are saying that might have been brought here in the form of this ISK, obviously to keep an eye and keep a foot of these proxies in this region. So this is also affecting us. But overall, if we can see the message which the Pakistani government had been communicating to Kabul time and again, that their soil should not be used, as they agreed in Doha, but it never happened. Now there are two reasons. Obviously, whether the Kabul government is not willing to take action, or perhaps they don't want to. So this is the you know, a thin line where we could not differentiate, because they have their own interests. It's obvious now that the militant groups which are operating from across the border. They are in the form of the Fitna al-Khawarij, or the band TTP, the ISK, even the Baloch separatist group, which they claim are also on that side of the border, and they have formed a nexus. Obviously, the economic boom which is likely to come through the BRI or the CPAC project, it is likely to be the target of these militant groups. And yes, we should not be like ruling out the role of those hostile agencies, even the international coalitions who are interested to keep this region volatile. So obviously Pakistan would have to give a message to all the US-led coalition and all those countries who had been in Afghanistan, and they have left Afghanistan for the third time, ditched rather this region and left, leaving billions of dollars of those weapons which are used against the Pakistani security forces. Yes, the border is sealed, we have the fencing, but still the proxies which are on both sides, they are working in a symbiotic relationship. They are supporting each other, and the sympathizers on this side of the border, again, you could rule out the availability of those extremist elements on this side of the border. They are patronizing, they are providing them the logistics, the support, and that's the reason we have seen attacks in South Waziristan, in North Waziristan, obviously on the bordering areas, even in the heart of even like Banu. Had been the main target of these militant groups. So it means that they are now operating again from the bordering areas inside your settled district, which is very alarming. DA Khan, if you have the militant presence, they come out, they patrol, this is very serious. So obviously the security forces are taking action, but this hit and run techniques, they are being used by these militant elements. And again, the unfinished agenda of National Action Plan, which the Pakistani government had announced to continue with and completed, I think this is very important. You have to root out the sympathizers, you have to root out the financial banking of these militant groups. So that could be the only way to get rid of them once for all. But overall, I think this year had been very deadly for the Pakistani security forces, also for the Pakistani civilians, because the militants obviously has increased their attacks, especially even striking inside the main cities, which is very alarming.
Right. Mr. Sherazi, you already in your take talked about the fencing, the border fencing, a very gigantic exercise Pakistani authorities undertook. Now, having done that particular exercise, we know that Pakistan security forces and law enforcement agencies remain to be vigilant. They've been busy in thwarting that infiltration of such elements from across the border from Afghanistan. What about the responsibility when we talk about the de facto authorities in Afghanistan? Okay, we've done the fencing over here. Our security forces are looking after that in order to stop that infiltration and thwart that. What about them? Don't they have any responsibility to fulfill?
Well, there are two reasons, Jawad. First is like perhaps, as I had earlier mentioned, whether they don't want to take action against their half-brothers, who they believe had been helping them in their so-called war against the invaders, the US-led coalition. Perhaps now today they are the third largest, aid receiving from the same infidels against the US and other coalition troops against whom they had been fighting. But still, they had been, propagating this, that they have expelled those infidels who had occupied Afghan territory. But again, they are not willing to take action against all those extremist elements which are operating inside Pakistan. This is one reason. The second, I think this is a very long border, and on the other side, we do have our checkpoints, our checkposts spreading all along this Pak-Afghan border, even in Balochistan area. But on the other side, the Afghan Taliban don't had those security checkpoints, security pickets on their side of the border. So that can be one reason. Secondly, this bordering belt, the no man's area between Pakistan and Afghanistan, perhaps this is a very serious problem. The unfrequented routes are the serious problem. Then, the patronization and the support which they have on both sides of the border, this is very serious, have to be taken very, seriously. So these are different factors which these militants or the extremist elements are using to penetrate inside Pakistan and strike the security forces. On the other hand, if we, in a real sense, perhaps Pakistan had been successful in countering most of these attacks, but still the reason is there are different factors. There are still hostile agencies, there are still proxies which are operating, they are patronizing, they are funding, they are supporting these elements, and obviously we should not be very clearly communicating to the international community. Now it is their turn. Pakistan had done a lot. Pakistan had offered a lot of sacrifices, not only militarily, but the economic destruction which had been caused in these tribal areas, we are still suffering. Then the anger which the people who had lost their households, who have lost their businesses, they still are very angry at what the government had failed to rehabilitate. Not the government, but also the civilian administration. The military has done the kinetic operation, they have rooted out the militants from these areas, but the reason for sympathizing with those extremist elements still is that the civil administration, the rehabilitation work, it had not been completed successfully. That could be another reason.
Important point. What needs to be done on that particular front, Mr. Sherazi? I'll come back to you. Let me take an earlier point towards both of the participants present in the studio. Dr. Munir, now how to how to make it more secure, this particular border, despite we've done the fencing. The law enforcement security forces remain vigilant in order to thwart that infiltration as well. Do you think there happens to be the equal responsibility of the Afghan Taliban? And if they fail to fulfill that responsibility as well, so do you think introducing technology in order to check that particular border could be the solution?
I think if they are not fulfilling their responsibility from the Afghan side, then certainly safeguarding our territory is our responsibility. And if all means are exhausted and nothing happening, then certainly we have to use technology. We have to take measures that can ensure, be it a strong patrolling, be the crackdown against the groups, those who are sympathizer inside Pakistan of the Taliban or TTP, whatever they are doing it. I know still people are going to be trained there. They are still hiring people, and certainly these stuff is going from Pakistan. It's not that only Afghans are coming up, but students for jihad, they are still going on, but the number is reduced, no doubt about it, but still they are having people on board.
Jihad against whom? We understand for a fact that there were international troops over here. There was a mantra on the part of the Afghan Taliban at that particular time, through which there was a nexus between this band, Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan Fitna al-Khawarij, and the Afghan Taliban. What's the point now if they were waging a war against the invaders from outside, the foreign invaders?
With their point of view, they are only selling the philosophy of jihad. It's not that we buy their philosophy, but still people and their sympathizer, those who are inside, because of the weak political governance inside Pakistan. So there is still sympathy about even before that. These are the kinetic operation going on. Before that, even when there was Terrorism 1.0, even at that time there was a lot of sympathizer inside Pakistan. Now thank God that has the number is reduced, but they have not been eliminated, because many people still idealize these kind of elements, those who are staunch religious or those have their ideology matching. So we inside Pakistan, we have to again intensify our work, which under national plan, 20-point national plan of action, and similarly we have done a lot of measures on counter violent extremism, CVE activity. So we have to enhance these activities, particularly in the provinces where they have a little sympathy kind of thing, particularly in KP or parts of Balochistan. We have to certainly come with these communities, and we have to work in these communities so that they could not have their hiding places, or their sympathizers should not have hiding places inside the society. We have to politically analyze the societies, we have to politically analyze the governance structures, and then humanitarian situation and humanitarian structure. Only then we can be in a position to check the support from this side, and then this could be a big measure to stop people going there, and they come back here and get refuge within these communities.
I continue to listen from various quarters as far as the achievement Pakistan had when you specifically talk about that particular wave of terrorism 1.0. Pakistan was perhaps the only country in the world that eliminated this particular menace with great success, and there was a considerable reduction of this particular menace at that particular time. But this resurfaced after Kabul was taken over by the Taliban back in 2021. So don't you associate that particular reason exclusively for what we are witnessing right now here in Pakistan?
I think the strength is the same with which we have defeated terrorism 1.0. That strength we still have. Even if you look at the conflict around the world, 299 million people, around 300 million people are trapped in these kind of conflict situation, those who need humanitarian assistance. Pakistan is also one of them. But the operation, the kinetic operation, Pakistan is doing the fantastic kinetic operation so far, because we are trained now in countering the guerrilla wars or these kind of wars which is in hiding actually, not in front. So we still have that edge, but the issue is that somehow now with the takeover by Taliban in Kabul, that is becoming a regional and global political issue. There are forces, those who are behind them, they are backing them. That's why without recognition they are pulling up. Even we don't have the policy to disengage with them.
Dr. Munir, when you talk of this particular issue becoming a global and a regional issue, wasn't it a global and a regional issue when terrorism 1.0 was there? Right?
The angle was different at that time. At that time, angle was that American wanted that there should be a big action and they should be defeated.
2.0.
So in 2.0, that kind of element has no interest in that way.
So that's exactly
here
the
we
point.
have to look at our own options.
So what are those options?
Our
then?
options are
if
that
the angle has changed,
yeah.
and if the Americans or the international troops required that particular 1.0 to be eliminated, why are not they giving a full heat to 2.0?
So that's a problem, because they thought that this is our regional issue. At this regional level, even China, SCO countries, they can play a good role, because the whole region is not only Afghanistan, Pakistan bordering areas are in conflict. The whole region actually is in conflict. The whole, if you look at Indo-Pacific strategy of the US, then still this whole area is a target for them, for the US politics, their political interests. That's why here the other allies of US are siding with Taliban regime. India, we should name it, because they are working with the Americans, so they have an interest, they are supporting through them. So this kind of support is continuing. We have to prepare diplomatically. We have, as initially I said, at 3 levels we have to work. One is to improve political and humanitarian governance inside Pakistan, with a focus of resilience building of the communities, so that the communities can flush them out, the elements which have sympathies with the Taliban or these kind of ideology. Secondly, engaging the regional power, those who are working with Taliban, and there should be kind of a platform. The only Doha repetition is not working, because Doha text not clearly says this, that is Pakistan is attacked, only then they will be activated. The Afghan soil will not be used for foreign operations. And those who have framed it, mostly they mean their own things.
But that naturally includes all the neighbors.
All, but not specifically Pakistan.
Yeah.
Because
but
we
that
are
doesn't
using
exclude
it
Pakistan
for only
either way.
For our, Pakistan included. I'm not excluding it. But with that debate, which are now having terrorism 1.0 and terrorism 2.0, in that context I'm talking here, that the same interest is not reflected here. That's why regionally and globally we have now SEO is a platform.
That is
we should
exactly
use
the
it.
point. I want you to shed a bit of a detailed light on this particular aspect, that how, if this particular pattern on the part of the interim Afghan authorities continues, and whether it is the matter of their will or capacity or whatever, if they continue in the same footsteps, what could be the possible options in order to engage with them? We know Pakistani authorities have been asking them through diplomatic means. They've been sharing with them the kind of irrefutable evidence of the Afghan nationals' involvement over here, as well as NATO caliber weapons being used against Pakistan in these heinous terrorist attacks. What could be the further options regarding that? Air Marshal Khan, when we talk about this particular border fencing, quite a gigantic exercise already undertaken, we know for a fact that every day the law enforcement agencies and security forces are involved in thwarting that infiltration. When it comes to the responsibility of the Afghan Taliban, to what scale does this challenge increase for the Pakistani security forces as well as the law enforcement agencies in order to thwart that illegal infiltration that happens from across the border from Afghanistan?
To a larger degree, we have been able to reduce the infiltration from Afghanistan into Pakistan. However, in mountainous regions, it is next to impossible to first fence and then stop. Okay. You were mentioning of something about use of technology in that area. Yes, it can be done. We have intelligence drones. Now we can use those drones in that area. We have very high quality drones which Pakistan is now making, which have a lot of standing time over there. They are under the Pakistan Air Force, and like once we were fighting against Terror 1.0, it was the Air Force that brought in the technology into the fight, and then they were able to take out the maximum number of terrorists in this region. But I would like to second Dr. Saab once he says that we need to have both a civilian as well as a military angle to fighting this war. We have to make a very sincere effort through the provincial government here, as well as we must continuously keep talking to the government in Afghanistan and ensure that the villages which are bordering on both sides do not harbor terrorists. Because if the terrorists come into the civilian area, it is very difficult then to differentiate through even drones or through sensors that who is a terrorist and who is not a terrorist. But yes, we can, just behind the villages, once they are coming in, when they are infiltrating, we can catch them. So the civilians must ensure that we have a very good network. The civilians do not harbor the terrorists into their homes, and then the military is already doing a fantastic job. Yes, they have a very, I would say on a scale of 1:10, if Terror 1.0 was 5, today we have a situation of something like 9. Yeah. So our defense forces are doing a tremendous job. They are facing a lot of casualties. But once the terrorists are singled out and we have the preemptive option over there, we can take them out very easily.
And how easier it
that
could
is
become?
Not very difficult.
And how easier can it become for Pakistani authorities and Pakistani law enforcement and security forces if there happens to be the fulfillment of that particular promise or the international obligation on the part of the Afghan Taliban, if cooperation or collaboration comes from that side of the border also?
Yeah, it would be very helpful. But maybe as Dr. Saab and Sherazi Saab are the experts of this region, they may tell us that I look at it that maybe the Afghan government is feeling happy with these attacks coming up onto Pakistan, because
to what purpose does that serve to them?
Because you have fighters in your country. If they are free, they will eat you. So it is better that they go across the border and fight over there, and you have peace and tranquility in Afghanistan. So it suits them that these fighters whom they are harboring in their country, they are not engaged in their country, because they have a mindset. Their livelihood depends on terrorism and all these things. So we really need, but then you can the solution lies only in talking and acting.
Right.
So the civilian government, both at the provincial level and at the federal level, must engage of the Afghan government, the regional powers, because the regional powers also get interested either due to economic reasons or due to, because of the reasons of faith. That is where, we can take their help in eradicating this menace from our country. The solution is not the same as Terror 1.0, but the solution is definitely there, and we really need to. We have the brains to undertake that.
I just want to add one point before you go to Sherazi. I think if you look at the kinetic operations now, we feel that despite having all the strength, there is a kind of a restraint, because the last time we had experience of heavy collateral damage. So my understanding is that this time our forces are taking care of extra care, because before this operation was started, there was a lot of criticism that this will go like it went earlier, and a lot of people were displaced. So this time we have seen that is a restraint kind of element. The care kind of element is there, that larger population should not be displaced. So this is just what I want to add.
Rightly highlighted by Dr. Sab. You see, the collateral damage will take place when the terrorists enter the civilian area. The time to take them out is, either
Before
when
that.
they are coming into that village or when they are coming out of that village to enter into our territory. And that can only be done that if the civilians give us, a head-on or an information onto their presence over there, and then you can bring in your electronic surveillance equipment, airborne surveillance equipment, find them out once they are coming out, and then take them out by weaponry. Let me make one thing very clear. It was, once we started off with Zarb-e-Azb and Radul Fasad, there were heavy casualties on the sides of Pakistan Army. And when the Pakistan Air Force came in, and then they took out, we did our surveillance and we took out the enemies. Our own attrition or our own shahadats became very little. So I think the solution lies in the same thing, that we really need to do, make a new strategy with both the civilians and the military sitting on one table, and inshallah, like we have done earlier, we can do it now.
Right. Mr. Sherazi, as per your understanding, going back to 15th of August 2021 and skipping this picture, what has developed over the last 3 years, almost more than that, couple of months from there, starting from there, if there had been a fulfillment on the part of the de facto authorities in Afghanistan, an active collaboration and cooperation towards the authorities here in Pakistan, what could have been the picture this time around?
Well, Jawad, I think as Air Marshal Sahab was saying and Raub Sahab was mentioning, perhaps there is a lack of trust between the two governments, and that is very important. I think in the last government we had a delegation there, they went there, we negotiated, we brought some people there with guarantees that they would not be carrying arms and ammunition and would have to surrender to the Pakistani authorities, writ, but that didn't happen, and that's why the people started, speculating that perhaps why these people had been again, invited here. Perhaps they are our own people, but we have to engage them. Coming again to the modern techniques which we are using on the border, yes, there are surveillance strikes, we have drones, we have modern gadgets, we are using it, but still I think those attackers, they also had, the sophisticated leftover US-led coalition weapons which they are using against the Pakistani authorities. And yesterday I was speaking to one of the, the deployed commander there, and he was mentioning that perhaps the area, especially in North Waziristan, Abu Shakai, Pash Ziyarat, these are so heavily infested, jungles where it is not possible to even trace them with the modern technology. What I would suggest, I think the border force, which along with the regular army, it have to be, developed. And that should be mostly, we have to engage the bordering tribes there to keep our effective intelligence network, who is coming out, who is going on. Because yes, we do have checkpoints. We are capturing the heights. We are sitting on the top. we are monitoring their movement, we are targeting them. But again, we are relying on the civilians there. But once we start engaging them, it would help us, man this border, monitor this border very effectively. Then coming against to the, almost those unfrequented routes, yes, they are there, but it can only be done with the help of the local population. The alien military who is coming from the outside, the units, they are not aware about the local, dynamics of those areas, the geographical terrain, that is a problem for them. They are very much visible, they are in uniform, that's why our casualties are increasing. But when the militants come across this side of the border, they get engaged in the civilian population. And as Air Marshal Sahab was mentioning, that we have to segregate them from the civilian population, that would help us out target them. Then again, from the border towns like South Waziristan, North Waziristan, even in the Khyber Agency, these people have started penetrating into the main population. They have reached Tang, they have reached Lucky Marwat, they have reached Banu. So this is very alarming. Now, when we speak to the local people there, honestly, we have to discuss, this is a very serious problem. I think the Pakistani authorities, both the federal and the provincial government, they have to be on one page to, whip them out, because there are reports that these people are patrolling in, one of the, like for example, Edak Bazaar, it is the main bazaar. In Banu, the people have been spotted patrolling on bikes and checking people and their CNICs. So now I think we are again successful, but we are losing that position. And again, if these people start operating in the urban area, that would be a very serious issue. For that, I think
Mr. Sherazi, does that call for enhancement of the capacity of the law enforcement over there in that particular province also?
Well, I think today I've heard that the provincial government has written to the federal government that they need the deployment of FC. Especially, the FC is the force which was, developed to man that buffer zone. But unfortunately, most of this FC troops, they are used for, VIP duties, for security duties in Islamabad, Lahore, Karachi. So I think we need that buffer zone force which should be deployed there. It should be comprising again from the local tribes. They must be keeping an eye, both for intelligence sharing, as well as for, the active operation. Now the police extension to the tribal areas, and after the merger of those tribal districts in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, it has further created a problem, because we are facing the administrative issues, we are facing governance issues. We cannot, take care of the overall administrative structure there, because the earlier Malik system and the tribal system that had, almost diminished, and we are not seeing it active. So we have to, work on a multi-pronged strategy along with the kinetic operation. We have to improve governance. We have to improve our administrative system. We have to improve our civil institutions. Then it is possible to counter the radicalization, the radicalized society. Otherwise, going on killing people, they would be attacking you, you would be attacking them. That is, a hit and run activity would go on. So naturally, you have to focus on the development of these areas. You have to focus on education. You have to extend development, and most importantly, you have to engage these tribal youth in a very effective, economic activity. There is a youth.
Again, Mr. Sherazi, you earlier in your take talked about the aim of this particular nefarious design is aimed at dismantling the benefits or the dividends which are associated with BRI and CPAC. Also, you mentioned of hostile forces at play. How to address that particular issue of the hostile forces, how to sensitize the major world powers and the international community and the international organizations such as the UNSC about those hostile forces?
Well, we need, apart from our kinetic operations, our military operations, our intelligence-based operation against the militant groups, we have to be very clear. We have to convey through our, our foreign policy, pointers should be very much clear. We should be communicating to the international community that targeting China and the CPAC and the BRI through proxies like ISK, TIP, the BLA, PNA, it would not be beneficial for any of them. Yes, they wanted to have a foot here, Indian wanted to have a foot in Balochistan. US, I would be openly mentioning, it is not happy. They want to have their foot here. They are patronizing ISK. Now this is openly being told by the American think tanks that the ISK militants have been airdropped in helicopters on the Pakistani and Afghanistan no-man border region. What is the reason for that? One reason is that to keep engage the Kabul government, keep them pressurizing. On the other hand, they would be having a nexus with BLA, BNA, and even the TTP. Now you have seen the TIP, Turkestan Islamic Movement party. It is a serious threat not only to the Chinese interest, but again the Central Asian states. They are very much worried about the activities on that side of the water. But mostly at this moment, I think the Indian influence, the UAE might not be happy with what is going on in the Gwadar and the Gwadar post, the Gwadar port, if it's getting active. I think this would be a huge economic boom for the people in Balochistan as well as Pakistan's economy. And we have seen like threats coming from the Americans that they would be bombing this region or the Gwadar port if it is handed over for military purposes to the Chinese. So I think these are the different things. We have to speak about them. We have to discuss with them, because if Pakistan is volatile, this region is volatile, it would be affecting India, it would be affecting Iran, it would be affecting Central Asian republics, and obviously, again, an unattended Afghanistan, it is still a very serious threat, not only for Pakistan, but for the entire region. And whatever successes we might have in the past, I think they would be getting neutralized if all these hostile forces are again brought here. Because
peaceful and a stable Afghanistan remains to be one of the key conditions for the regional security. Dr. Munir, now these hostile forces, these elements, what to do about them as far as sensitizing the international community is concerned?
I think sensitization of international community could only be possible if we analyze it rightly, why they are silent on terrorism 2.0, what could be their interest. If you look at the conflict around the world, there is a politics behind the conflicts. So this conflict cannot be seen in isolation, that it is between Pakistan and Afghanistan. So this conflict should be taken into international consideration, international politics. That's why we have to negotiate, we have to talk that the peaceful region in this part of the world would be important not only for Pakistan, Afghanistan, but whole of the region and global politics.
You already
so we have
mentioned
to
of
negotiate.
India.
Yeah?
You already mentioned of India in your earlier take. What about it?
India should also be neutralized sometime, because India cannot be in isolation, walk out of the SCO regime. Somehow, because the American interest, if you look at, as I mentioned, the Indo-Pacific strategy, where India thinks its role is limited there. If India realizes, and through the diplomatic channel, we make it realize to India and other regional players that SCO is a strong platform with economies, because 1/5 of the world economies are here, trade is here, population is here. So let us build this region instead of being a limited role in that region.
What could be done
we can have
from
a
the
bigger
SCO
role
platform as far as India's nefarious designs are concerned, their sponsorship of transnational terrorism? The world has come to know the kind of assassinations and assassination attempts they have tried to make in the West as well. How to utilize the SCO platform, because both Pakistan and India happen to be the member of SCO. What could be done on that?
There are two ways of doing it. One is the normal way of which is track 1, through the the governments we meet, and even Indian secretary, the minister came here, secretary. They came here, and Pakistani foreign minister also went for this. This means that they are associated with this platform. One is the track 1. Then there is a track 2, because I am part of a track 2 which is taking care of the climatic situation between India and Pakistan, the smoke issue and other things. So these are the issues which have no trade relation, which has no other thing. So at least on the peace thing, because peace is ultimately, India is also spending a lot of money on these kind of operations to make us unsafe in the western border. So they can save this money, and these things could only be possible through CBMs and through the track 2, like we have senior colleagues with us, Marshal Saab. There are their own, his counterpart are there. Similarly, ambassador in the last track to, you know, even our foreign secretary was former foreign secretary and their former foreign secretary. We all work together. Yeah. So track 2 is the other way to convince.
Unfortunately, we are short of time. I'll have to take the final comments from Air Marshal Khan.
I'll actually like to second this point which has been raised by Sherazi Sahab and Dr. Munir, and that is that we must use our diplomatic force or our foreign office to convince the important capitals in the world that this, you know, this problem is going to not only affect us, it is also going to affect them. Nobody can be more effective than the foreign office in sending this point of view to the important people in the respective capitals. The second thing is that if there is a need for experts to go from here, you know, our security experts to go from here with proper evidence, the ambassador can arrange those meetings with the specific people in specific capitals, and those briefings should be given. Now, SCO is basically an economic, is an organization for economic gains. It is very easy to tell them that if this area is unstable, then at least 5-6 important countries of the world will not economically gain out of it. But on the other side, just as the last sentence, I would say that we also need to change our line of thinking. We must now talk to all our neighbors. We must talk to all our, all those countries which are sympathetic to us, and take forward our point of view in a very forceful manner. And I think we need to do a diplomatic offensive, we need to do a peace offensive by the civilians, and then we also need to do a military offensive to ensure that no enemy enters Pakistan.
Mr. Air Marshal Retired Saeed Mohammed Khan, Senior Analyst, thank you very much for your time, for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. Dr. Shafqat Munir, Security Analyst, thank you very much for your time also. And on Skype, we were honored to have been joined by Mr. Zahir Shah, Sherazi, Security Analyst. Mr. Sherazi, thank you very much for your time also, for being with us on the show tonight. We really appreciate that. With that, we come to the end of today's episode. Till the next one, take good care of yourselves.